Hi, welcome to my kitchen. I'm Tiara, and today we're going to do a kind of zhuzhed up banana bread. So banana bread is a really easy, quick bread, which means it doesn't use yeast to rise, and most of the time it's just bananas, flour, and sugar. But we're going to add some extra elements to kind of make it a little bit tastier, a little bit fancier, but not too fancy. So this is still a good, easy to make recipe. So if we're ready, let's go ahead and take a look at the ingredients.
Go.
I have 1 stick of butter, which is half a cup or 113 grams. I have 3 ripe bananas, 2 large eggs that are at room temperature. I'm going to use a teaspoon of vanilla extract. I have 2 cups or 240 grams of all-purpose flour. I have 1/2 cup of regular granulated sugar, which is 100 grams. And then I have 1/2 cup, which is 50 grams of light brown sugar, a teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then this is a baking mix or seasoning mix that I use, but basically it's 1/4 teaspoon cardamom and 1/4 teaspoon nutmeg that you're going to be adding in. And then the zest from 1 orange. And then for our pecan topping, we have 1/2 cup or 60 grams of pecan pieces, a tablespoon of butter, which is about 14 grams, and then 1/4 cup or 25 grams of light brown sugar. So now that we've got all of our ingredients ready, let's get baking. All right, I'm going to start with the pecan topping. So I'm going to turn the heat to medium-high. Then we'll add in our butter. And let that melt. We'll add in our brown sugar. I'm just mixing the butter and the brown sugar together. Alright. Now you should be able to see that it's starting to bubble a little bit. Then we'll just throw in our pecan pieces. We're just stirring everything around to coat it. And actually, now that it's heated, I'm just going to turn the stove off because you don't need it on for very long, just enough to melt the butter and the brown sugar. All right, so this is done for now. We're just going to let it sit here inside the pan while we go ahead and make the batter for the banana bread. All right, so I have preheated the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I have a 9-inch by 5-inch loaf pan here that I have put some parchment paper in. If you don't have parchment paper, I would use either butter or non-stick cooking spray to spray it down so that the cake or the banana bread does not stick to the loaf pan. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to cream together the butter and the sugar. So this butter is room temperature. It's been out of the fridge for about 1.5 hours. Usually about 1 hour will get you down to room temperature with no problems. And then I have the granulated sugar, which I'm going to put in first. So this is the only part of the recipe that we really need to use a hand mixer or a stand mixer for. And that's just to help kind of whip up the butter. It's going to be nice and fluffy, and that's going to give the banana bread a good texture. All right. Let's start on low. And then as it starts to incorporate, I will move it up to a medium speed. It only takes maybe a minute or two for the sugar and the butter to become incorporated. And then we're going to add in the brown sugar and mix that as well. So if you have a stand mixer, this works great because it's very little effort. If you have a hand mixer like the one that I'm using for this particular demonstration, and something that you can do to make it easier on yourself is to use your free hand to rotate the bowl. All right, that's done. I don't want that to fall. Don't fall, thank you. All right. Now I'm going to put in our bananas. So ripe bananas are always the best to use, or overripe, I guess you would say, because they're soft, they're mushy, and the sugar has really come out of the fruit. If you don't have ripe bananas, but you're dying to make banana bread, you can pop your bananas, peel on, into the oven for about 15 minutes, and that'll brown them, and that'll help get the same soft texture as an overripe banana. Now I promised my husband, who is kindly doing the overhead shot, that I was going to have everything prepared. That's the oven beeping, but I totally forgot to bring a fork over here, so I'm just going to grab a fork really quickly. All right, so I'm just going to take this fork and mash the bananas into the sugar and butter mixture. Buddies, you okay? It's tea time for dogs. They're having a little snack behind me and apparently possibly choking, but hopefully not to death. All right, so as you can see, there's still kind of chunks of banana, but that's fine. It's mostly mushed in there. I'm going to move this hand mixer because I'm afraid it's going to fall. All right, so now I'm going to add the vanilla extract, 1 teaspoon. Buddies. So as I mentioned recently, Bilbo, our black Shih Tzu, had cataract surgery, and as he's eating, he keeps dropping pieces, and instead of just going to the bowl that he can reach, he keeps trying to drag his cone along the ground and get the pieces of food he dropped, which is not very useful, but whatever makes him happy. All right, just adding in the eggs here to the wet mixture. So one of the secrets to a good banana bread, puppies. So one of the secrets to a good banana bread is to not overmix everything. So yes, this looks like a weird, chunky, I don't know, gross splooge of stuff, but and most of it's butter, because the butter doesn't really mix with everything else unless it's completely melted. But once we get it into the oven, those little bits of butter that didn't quite incorporate into the dough or into the batter will kind of melt, and that gives it also a nice taste and texture. That's fine. So very quickly, I'm going to mix together my flour, my salt, my baking soda, cinnamon. This is Vietnamese cinnamon I'm using, but regular cinnamon is fine. Vietnamese cinnamon just has kind of a more robust flavor to it. And then this is my special baking mix, but you can use a 1/4 teaspoon of cardamom and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. And that just gives it a little bit of warmth. Oh, I almost forgot about the orange zest. So, all right, so I'm gonna zest the orange into the wet ingredients. So I like using a little bit of citrus, orange in particular, because it's got a nice flavor that goes well with the banana and it doesn't overpower it. And unlike lemon, it's not too puckery, too sour. So it adds a nice layer of flavor that goes well with not only the banana, but the cinnamon and the nutmeg as well. I am looking forward to eating this orange later. All right. So I've incorporated all of the dry ingredients into the flour, and I'm just going to use a whisk to really quickly mix them together. This makes sure that there are no clumps of baking soda, which if you have ever bitten into something that has like a little bit of baking soda not properly mixed in, it's like a sudden really bitter, gross taste in your mouth, and you don't want that when you're eating banana bread or you're giving friends a nice banana bread gift. So, okay, so now I'm just going to put the dry into the wet. And I'm going to use a spatula to mix it. Now, if you have a stand mixer, you can use a stand mixer to do this too. My stand mixer doesn't quite reach over to this table, which is one of the reasons that I am not using it. But you don't really need to, because it's just a very light mixture and you don't have to worry too much about beating it. And in fact, you don't really want to overbeat it. You just want it to be just mixed so that everything is together and combined, but you aren't mixing it for too long. Mixing it for too long is going to change the texture. It's going to make the texture rubbery and generally unpleasant, and you don't want that. So it's basically you just mixing it until it's just combined, and make sure you get that spatula underneath there and get everything off the bottom of the bowl too. So as you can see, probably, I've got like little clumps of banana in here. So it looks lumpy, but that's the banana, and the banana doesn't mix in all the way. Well, some of it doesn't, because that's just the nature of bananas. So, and if you're beating your banana bread until it's all smooth and silky, you're overbeating it, and again, it's going to make a very rubbery bread. All right, got my tin, and I'm just going to pour this in. So it's a nice thick batter. I'm just going to use the spatula, spread it out evenly. There we go. And then I'm going to grab our pecans, which have dried and kind of caramelized a little bit. and I'm just gonna spread the pecans over the top. So if you want to, you can mix the pecans in, and you don't really need to do the sugar coating if you do that. But I like to put them on top because one, it'll give a nice little crunch, and two, if you have people that are not allergic to nuts but don't really care for nuts, they can just pick the pieces off. And that way people who do like nuts have some, and everybody is happy. Obviously, if you have somebody that is allergic to nuts, don't put the pecans on. All right, so we are ready to bake now. As I said, the oven was preheating to 350 degrees. It's gonna bake for anywhere between 45 and 55 minutes. And so what I'll do is I'll put it in the oven and we'll test it probably in about 50 minutes. And you just want a toothpick in the center to come out clean. And so if there's little goopy bits that are attached to the toothpick still, put it in for another 5 minutes and just watch it in 5-minute increments because you don't want to overcook it. All right, so I'm going to put this in the oven and then we'll see you when it's ready. All right, we're out of the oven and ready to cool. I don't know if you can see this, but it looks very good. It smells amazing. Since I put the parchment paper in, I'm just going to take the parchment paper and take the loaf out and set it on the wire rack to cool. Now, you want to let the banana bread cool completely before you wrap it up and store it. So once it's cool, you can wrap it in cling film or an airtight container, and it'll be good on the counter for about 4 days, or it will stay in the fridge for about a week. You can also, if this is too much banana bread for one household at a time, you can cut it in half, wrap it up and freeze it, or you can freeze the whole thing if you want to use it later. And it can be in the freezer for up to 2 months. Just make sure it's wrapped very well so it doesn't get any kind of like permafrost on it. And then if you are freezing it, the way to thaw it out is just to let it thaw out at room temperature, and then you'll reheat it for about 10 minutes at 350 in the oven, and it should still taste fresh and nice and delicious. But for right now, we're gonna let this cool, and I'll probably try a piece later, but I can guarantee you it's gonna be delicious. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. If you have any suggestions for recipes that you'd like to learn how to bake, or you'd like to bake along with me, please let me know in the comments. And until next time, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.